Good evening, Rabbi. We are here to discuss tonight the most important mitzvah of the Rosh Hashanah holiday, which is the blowing of the shofar. Why is the blowing of the shofar considered to be the most important mitzvah of the Rosh Hashanah holiday? There's two reasons. One is that the shofar is from the Torah. We're commanded from the Torah to blow the shofar, as opposed to the other mitzvot in Rosh Hashanah, like prayers and tashlich, and all kinds of other things that we do. These are all from the rabbinical or their customs, all kinds of things like this. But the shofar is mamash; it's really actually from the Torah. So since that's the case, we have to be very, very careful about that. But there's also the reason behind the Mitzvah of Shofar, which is also very, very crucial for the success of that day. What does that mean? That day is considered to be the day of judgment. We're being judged on that day. The whole world is being judged. The Jewish people as well, obviously, and everybody else as well. So what's happening is that we want to have our judgment tilted towards the favored side, the favoritism. So what we do is we roll the shofar. How does that work? It says there's a Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, Tet Zayin Amud Bet. It says over there that the reason why we blow the shofar so many times, standing, sitting, all kinds of things like this, is to mix up the Satan. What does that mean? To make him confuse him, to confound him. Why is that? Because he's coming on that day, like our Moreno Rabbeinu Maran Ovadia used to tell us, Shalom, that this was like a parable he used to say, but it's actually true. That what happens is on that day that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is judging the whole world. So Satan comes over there, and he is also coming. Obviously, his main reason is to accuse the people, accuse the Jewish people, that to bring all their sins. So he has all his information ready. He's got all the material. He's got it on his laptop or he's got it on his tablet, whatever it is. He's got everything ready, all the files, all the sins, everything. He's coming over there to the court, right? So the court is being convened on that day. All the court is being convened in the daytime, by the way, not at night. So therefore he comes in the morning, early in the morning, the prosecutor, which is the Satan himself, and he has all his information ready. So they say, okay, what do you have to say about these Jews, right? What's your accusation? So what happens is he starts to open up his files, on the laptop there, and the tablet, whatever he's got there, he's opening it up. And meanwhile, he hears, some rabbi, somewhere from Rico Park, Queens, whatever it is, right, or some other place. He starts to blow the shofar. So once he hears that, he starts getting nervous, and starts to get a little bit nervous, fidgety, whatever. So as the shofar goes on, and more and more and more, and sitting during the sitting, during the standing, during after the Torah reading, and then during the Musaf prayers, more and more shofar, he already starts to get very, very confused and very confounded. He cannot accuse. So what's the reason why? Because he thinks, as we find in the book Kli Yakar on the Chumash on Bereshit, and also there's a book called Or Yakar, which is from Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, one of the big Mekubalim, 500 years ago. So what happens is that he writes over there, they write that what happens is the Satan thinks that when you are blowing the shofar, that Mashiach is coming, because this is what it says, right, in the prophets and in our prayers also we have, right, Teka b'shofar gadol lechirutenu. Itaka b'shofar gadol b'yom hahu. Right? It says in all kinds of things like this, verses and prayers that we do. So what does that mean? That when a Mashiach comes, there's going to be a big shofar, which is going to be blown at that time. So because of that, what happens is the Satan, he's like a robot, he's an angel. So the Satan is one of the angels. He's one of the bad boys. There's the good angels, there's the bad angels. He's one of the bad ones. He's the main bad one, the Rosh, the head honcho. So what happens is that he starts to think, maybe Mashiach is coming, because he's programmed like that. He has a program. His program says, when you hear the shofar, that means that Mashiach is coming. Even though, he should know better because he knows it's Rosh Hashanah, but that's the way he's programmed. So what happens is that once he hears the shofar, he starts thinking, oh man, if Mashiach is coming, my goose is cooked. Why? What's going on? So why is that? Because as the Chazal teach us in the Gemara, that what happens is that once Mashiach comes, so Satan doesn't have any more role in our society. He's going to be eliminated, right? He's going to be put away for life, right? That's it. He's finished. His role is over. He's going to be killed. He's going to be slaughtered, right? Why is that? Because all his role is to seduce the people into sinning, and then to accuse them, and then to kill them. That's his role. He has 3 roles altogether. So as the Chazal teach us, so what happens is that role, once Mashiach comes, is over. Now there's no more Yitzhara. There's no more reward and judgment, the reward and punishment, all kinds of things like this. It's all eliminated. Now it's time to receive the reward, not anymore to be tested. So therefore his role is over. That's his whole job. This whole narrative is his whole job. So therefore he says, wow, that's it. It must be my last day on this world. So he starts to get nervous. He says, okay, you know what? He says, he starts to get really, really fidgety, and then he can, have cardiac arrest over there in the court. Faint. He faints, falls on the floor. They say, what's going on? The prosecutor had a heart attack. He had a stroke, whatever it is, right? Something like that. He can't prosecute anymore. So what happens is that now they say, okay, the court is adjourned. So they adjourn the court. And they do the same thing the next day also, the second day, the same thing comes again on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Again, he tries the same trick. Again, he hears the shofar, do. And right, again, he's already wiped out. So what happens is that because of this, it shuts his mouth. It totally obliterates decimates all his accusations. So therefore, a person wants to get the benefit of this whole process, of this whole narrative. What does he have to do? He has to hear the shofar. In order to be included in that he shouldn't be able to accuse him. If he doesn't hear the shofar, so Satan can accuse him. This is the thing, right? So therefore he has to make sure, every Jew has to make sure that he hears the shofar. We're talking about the men. The women, we're going to talk about that later. They're really exempt, technically speaking. Custom is that they come anyway. They try to come if they can. We'll talk about that. But the point is that the men have to hear the shofar. So this is the reason why. So therefore, these are the two reasons why the shofar is considered to be the most important mitzvah of the holiday, of the Rosh Hashanah holiday. So therefore, don't skip that. Especially, which one does he have to hear? We're not talking about all the shofar. They're not all equal. Because we're talking about the first time that they blow the shofar, which is in the morning. Once they do shachrit, they pray shachrit, then they read the Torah, and once they read the Torah, they're finished everything, the haftarah. So then everybody sits down, and the rabbi gets up there, or whoever was blowing the shofar, some other guy, the chazan, whatever it is, and he starts to blow the shofar. So he does over there 30 voices. And those are the ones that we have to hear, because those are the ones that are from the Torah. Those are it's the main element of the shofar. Later, what we also do later on is also rabbinical, or customs, whatever, and depending on which one we're talking about, so that's already less important. But if he heard those 30 voices, so he has fulfilled his obligation, according to the Torah, as we said, so therefore he's already in good shape, because now the accusation cannot come on him like it was supposed to come on Rosh Hashanah. So therefore he's going to get out with a much better judgment, with a much better verdict. That's the idea. So in order to understand how do we do the shofar properly, you have to know how to do it. Technically, there are also technical issues that are involved. Right? Number one, I must tell you that the shofar has to be done by somebody who's expert in these laws. He has to learn the rules in the Shulchan Aruch. He should learn the poskim. He should learn the Gemara, all these things that have to do with the shofar, in order that he should know how to do it properly. Because if he does a couple of things wrong, messes up here and there, one or two things, he could mess up the whole thing, and the community did not fulfill their obligation. So therefore, he has to make sure that he does the shofar properly. So what does it mean to do the shofar properly? Let's just give it a main rundown of how it works. So Gemara teaches us in Rosh Hashanah that in order to fulfill the obligation for shofar in Rosh Hashanah, you need to hear 9 tekiot, nine voices, right? So what does that mean? That he has to hear tru'ah. Tru'ah is the middle part. Tru'ah, which is the main part of the blowing of the shofar, and then we have tekiyah. So these are two different things. Tekiyah is the long one, which we do in the beginning and the end of the blowing, like that, right? It's long. So then we do the teruah in the middle, and then we do another tekiyah afterwards. It has to be like that. It's like sandwiched in. The teruah gets sandwiched in between two tekiot. So that's already 3 voices. So we have to do that 3 times. So altogether, we're talking about 9. So then, right, how do we get to the number of 30? I just told you, right, that the chazan, the rabbi, he does 30 blowings, not 9. So how do we get to 30? So the Gemara says that there's a doubt regarding that. What does that mean? There's a doubt which is the real teruah, the middle one, which is the main point element of the shofar. What is called teruah? So there is one opinion that says that teruah is called the shevarim. The shevarim is the one that goes like 3 times. Do. That's shevarim. That's called teruah, according to one opinion. There's also another opinion that says that teruah is the fast one. which has to be done at least 9 times or more. Right, that's the idea. So one opinion says that's called teruah, and there's also another opinion, third opinion, which brings them together. Right, yavo shlishi ve'achriya benehem. It's the third opinion which combines the two. What does that mean? It says that teruah is really both of them together. The shvarim tu, and then we have the teruah tu. All those together are called teruah. So according to that, you have to do both of them together, and then do tekiah afterwards and before, as we said. So in order to fulfill all these possibilities, since we consider a doubt, so a person, what he has to do is he has to do all three possibilities, because safek d'oraita le'achamir, right? Since it's from the Torah to blow the shofar, so therefore what we have to do is make sure we do it the right way. We fulfill all the possibilities. So what happens is that we have to do 9 times 3. So what does it come out to be? 27. So how do I get to 30? What happened with 30? Because since, according to one opinion, Teruah is two of them together, Shvarim and Teruah, do. So according to that, it's really 2 for 1. You get two for the price of 1. So altogether, because of that, it comes out to be 30 voices. So together, in order to fill the obligation, according to all the opinions, 30 voices does the trick, and we're all set with that. This is the reason why we do 30. But the interesting thing is that a person has to know the laws of how to do these things properly. So what does that mean? That there's actually machloket we find in the Talmud, in Rosh Hashanah, between Rashi and Tosfot. Right? There's Rashi, the opinion of Rashi. There's the opinion of Riva, which is brought in the Tosfot. These are two different opinions altogether. What does that mean? According to the opinion of Rashi, right, what we just said, Shvarim, those 3 that we do. According to Rashi, this has to be the length of those Shvarim. Each one has to, like, something very small. Do, like that. Very small, very, very short. That's enough. So what does that mean? It's like 3 notes altogether. 3 notes, 3 short notes, like 8th notes or 16th notes, whatever you want to call it, right? According to Rashi, that's the way it's done. So the rule is, it says in the Gemara, that Tekiah and Teruah should be equal in time, in terms of duration. So therefore what happens is, that Tekiah, since Teruah is only 3 notes, according to the opinion of Rashi, so therefore Tekiah also has to be at least 3 notes. So it should be like this. No, that's it. That's called Tekiah already. 3 notes. The duration of 3 notes. So what happens is that according to this opinion, the Shvarim, the Teruah has to be very short, and the Tekiah has to be a little bit 3 times longer than that. And if you do it this way, you fulfill your obligation. But the truth is that we have also another opinion. We have the opinion of Tosfot, as we said. So Tosfot doesn't understand that way. What he says is that Teruah, Shvarim, right? What we say about do. He says those are 3 notes each one. Each one is 3 notes. So it's like do. 3 notes, 3 short notes, like 8th notes or 16th notes. If you know a little about music, you understand what I'm talking about. So since it's 3, so therefore since the Tekiah and the Teruah are equal, they're both the same. So therefore 3 times 3 is 9. Since we have to do at least 3 times the Teruah, so it comes out that the Tekiah also has to be 9 notes, because since the Teruah is 9 notes, 3 times 3, Tekiah also has to be like a little bit longer. Like that, right? That's 9 notes, right? 9 short notes. That's the idea. So according to that opinion, according to the opinion of Tosfot, that everything has to be longer, 3 times as much as Rashi. So it comes out that, right, you have to do either one way or the other way. If you don't do if you kind of like try to mix them up together, so it says the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tuf Kuf Tzadik Sif Gimel that you haven't fulfilled your obligation according to either opinion. What does that mean? Let's say you make the right, according to the first opinion, according to Rashi, if you make the Teruah, the Shvarim, too long, you make it 3 notes. So what happens is now it became a Tekiah, so it's too long. So you didn't fulfill obligation, according to Rashi. Also, according to Tosfot, that says that they're longer, 3 times as much longer. So what it means is that if you did the Tekiah and you didn't do 9 notes, right, you didn't fulfill your obligation because it's too short. It's not Tekiah. Tekiah has to be at least the size of the Teruah, which is 9 notes. By the way, that also can be changed. What does that mean? That if we're talking about 3 possibilities, as we said, so since you have to fulfill all 3 possibilities, one of the possibilities, as we said, is that Teruah is 2 things combined, the Shvarim and Teruah, right? What does that mean? Do. So those short ones have to be 9 notes, and the Shvarim is also 3 times 3, which is 9. So altogether, according to that opinion, you have 18 notes over there, short notes, 16th notes, whatever it is, like 8th notes. So you have 16 short ones. So that means that, 18. So it has to be that when you do the Tekiah on that particular version of the blowing, according to that opinion, you have to do tekiyah 18 notes. So it's going to be really, really long. Like that, it has to be really long. Make sure you got 19 16th notes over there, because according to that, the teruah is also long. It's 18, right? 18. So also the tekiyah has to be also 18 16th notes. That's the idea. So if you don't do it or one way or the other, so you haven't fulfilled your obligation according to either one. So therefore you're stuck now with nothing. You have nothing in your hands. So the question is raised, right? Which one is really the halacha here? Do we paskin like Rashi? Do we paskin like Tosfot? So the truth is, there's a machloket, just like everything else. There's a machloket, there's a dispute about this. But according to the majority of poskim, and also the custom, the prevailing custom, according to, we have many other poskim that talk about this, the Mishnah Berurah, the Chayei Adam, we have the Rabbi Zalman, the Alter Rebbe, we have all kinds of rabbis who say that the custom nowadays is to do like Tosfot. So what does that mean? In most places, that's the way it's done. That what? That we're talking about, also in the Shulchan Aruch, when it mentioned that it brings both these opinions down there. The Shulchan Aruch, Tav Kuf Tzadik, Sif Gimel, it brings both opinions. It says Yesh Omrim, it says some say like this, and then it says Yesh Omrim, some say like that. So first it brings the opinion of Rashi, then it brings the opinion of Tosfot. So the rule is, right, according to many Achronim and many of the later authorities, that in Shulchan Aruch, when it says Yesh Omrim, the halacha is like the last one. So therefore, we go like the last opinion, which is Tosfot. So also according to Shulchan Aruch, the halacha is like Tosfot. So therefore, the custom is also like that, according to, as we said, to many poskim. So therefore, also the Ramah writes like that in the Shulchan Aruch as well. It's pretty much universal, this idea. Halacha is like Tosfot. So therefore, what should a person do l'maaseh? You should try to do like Tosfot. So what does that mean? The shvarim, the ones that goes like this, those should be at least 3 notes, 3 short notes, the duration. Not make them too short, because if you make them too short, that's already not shvarim, that's already too short. It's 1 note, that's already called teruah, that's something else. So therefore, in order to do it properly, to do the shvarim, you have to do each one 3 notes, and then do 9 short ones, because if you're doing tashrat, if you're doing 2 of them together, but if you're doing only just one of them, so that's enough already. You have 9 notes, that's enough. As we said, there's 3 different opinions how to do it. So what happens is that we should do like Tosfot, and therefore what you should do is the tekiyah should be long, right? At least 9 short notes. The tekiyah duration has to be 9 short notes. But when he does tashrat, when he does 2 of them together, the teruah, which is shvarim and teruah together, so there he has to do 18. Why? Because we have 9 times 2. Each one is 9. So therefore, altogether we have 18. And since the teruah and tekiyah has to be the same amount, so therefore he has to do 18 here and 18 there. All right, that's the minimum. So therefore he has to make the tekiyah really, really long in that version of the blowing, in order that he should fulfill obligations. So you see all these things, right? If a person doesn't know all these things, what's going to happen is he's not going to fulfill the obligation of the community properly. According to the maximal, right, the way of doing it, right, the optimal way of doing this mitzvah, the real proper way. So he has to do according to this opinion. He should try it. So therefore, a person has to know how to do that. So the halacha is like, as we said, it's like Tosfot. Another thing which a person should know is that it says also in the Shulchan Aruch, in the same siman, the Sif Dalet, it says over there that we have to make the shvarim, right, when it comes to the teruah, which is the middle one, it has to be done in one breath. So what does that mean? When the person is blowing the shofar, he has to do that in one breath, not like to take another breath and then do it again to finish it, divide it up into 50-50, 2 parts or 3 parts. He has to do the whole teruah, the middle part, in one shot. So therefore, if he does, let's say, right, shvarim, that has to be done in one breath, not to take another breath to rebreathe. You cannot do that. If you do that, you're going to fulfill the obligation, according to what we said. So therefore, this also a person has to know who's blowing the shofar. That's why he has to be expert. Otherwise, if he doesn't know these things, he's going to make a mess out of it, right? That's the idea. He may not fulfill the obligation. So what happens is that, as we said, right, it has to be in one breath, and also when he does the fast one, that also has to be in one breath, because that's also considered to be teruah. Right, as we said, there's different opinions on what teruah is, and since now there's also another opinion which says that teruah is both of them together, right? Since you have 18 notes over there altogether, so therefore it's pretty hard You have to do all that together according to this idea. 18 notes in one breath. So the truth is, right, that there's a machloket regarding that between the Ramban and the Rabbeinu Tam. The Ramban says that even that big one that you do double, you have to do also in one breath. According to Rabbeinu Tam, that one doesn't need to be done in one breath. So therefore, it says the Shulchan Aruch, in order to fulfill the obligation from both sides, we should do like the opinion of the Ramban, and also like Rabbeinu Tam, we want to fulfill all the obligation from all sides, from all the opinions. So he says the best thing to do is that when they do the shofar, sitting down after the reading of the Torah, they should do like the opinion of the Ramban, to do everything in one breath, and then according to fulfill the obligation of the Rabbeinu Tam, right? Then he says you have to do it in two breaths, and there's some say that if you don't do it in two breaths, you didn't fulfill the obligation. So therefore, we do when we stand and we do in the Musaf, we do like the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam, in order to fulfill the obligation from both sides. So this, right? If a person really knows how to do the shofar properly, he'll know, all these halachot. He learned them properly with a good rabbi, whatever, he himself is a rabbi, whatever it is, and then he knows how to do all these things properly. But if he doesn't, if he's amaretz and there's no rabbi guiding him up there, guiding him to know how to so how is he going to fulfill the obligation of the community like that? He doesn't know what he's doing with these halachot. Very, very hard. So as we said, Rabbi, that this is the way to do it. So over there we're going to do all together, it's going to come out to be 30 voices, and the rabbi is going to make a bracha beforehand, right? The first day that we do the shofar, we're supposed to make two brachot. One is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kiddushanu B'Mitzvotav V'Tzivanu Lishmoa Kol Shofar, to hear the shofar, because the mitzvah is to hear the shofar, not to blow the shofar. The mitzvah is to hear it. Blowing it is just an intermediary, but the main issue is to hear the shofar. So what does that mean? Even the person who blows the shofar, if he didn't hear what he blew, he didn't fulfill his obligation. Let's say he had earplugs, whatever, he didn't hear. So in a case like that, so everybody has to hear the shofar. Hearing the shofar is the obligation. So we have the two blessings. One is to hear the shofar. Second one is Shechianu. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Shechianu V'Kiyamenu V'Genu L'Zman Hazeh. Because this is a time-bound mitzvah that we do once a year. So therefore we should make Shechianu. But what's interesting is that this year, since Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we're not going to blow the shofar. Why? Because the rabbi said, right, that on Shabbat, they cancel the mitzvah of shofar. Even though the Torah obligates us to do it even on Shabbat. But the rabbis came and said, no, don't do it. Right? What kind of thing is that, right? But we just said, right, that the shofar has such a big benefit for us to confuse the Satan and all these things. So if that's the case, how come we don't blow on Shabbat? How can we cancel this mitzvah which is from the Torah? How can the rabbis come and cancel something which is from the Torah? So the answer is about it says in the Rambam that the truth is that the rabbis, we're not talking about any rabbis. We're talking about the rabbis of the Sanhedrin, the high court that sat 71 judges, right? And when the Bet HaMikdash was built at that time, during that period, that high court is allowed to do these kinds of things. They're allowed to annul the mitzvot. What does that mean? It says the Rambam only temporarily though. Like nobody can come and annul the mitzvot altogether, like permanently, because that's already like you're canceling something which was made by God. These are from Hashem. These are from God. These mitzvot. So you cannot do that. So says the Ramban. Says the Rambam that they can temporarily nullify something on a temporary basis, and that's exactly what they're doing over here. They're telling you, don't do it the first day if it falls on Shabbat. Do it the second day. So it's not really something which is permanent. Also, when Mashiach comes, it'll be reinstated. We'll be doing also on Shabbat as well. What's the reason why they said not to do the shofar on Shabbat? Because you may come to carry it in a place where there's no eruv, and you're going to be transgressing Shabbat, right? Which is very severe. It's considered to be like a death penalty, to transgress Shabbat. So therefore, a person has to be very careful about keeping Shabbat. Otherwise, he could be liable to cutting off or death, God forbid, depending on the situation. So this is the reason why the rabbi said on Shabbat we don't blow the shofar. It's interesting, by the way. But if that's the case, right? But didn't we say that we want to confuse the Satan? Right? So then, what's going to do with that? How are we going to confuse the Satan? Okay, we'll confuse him the second day. But what about the first day? So just to give you a little taste of a little interesting answer, it could be, by the way, that it really has to do with the issue of what we said, which is said in Halakha. It's what on Shulchan Aruch in Choshen Mishpat, that a person, that we're not allowed to do judgment on Shabbat. We cannot do bet din on Shabbat. Right, so maybe also the upper bet din as well. They don't do bet din on Shabbat. So therefore, this may be the reason why the rabbis, we're not so worried about that, because anyway, there's no bet din on Shabbat. everything. There's no judgment on Shabbat. Shabbat is a day of kindness and good and holiness, and everything is good and everything is happy. So there's really the judgment is not going to be harsh on Shabbat because of the essence of the Shabbat day is itself. We don't judge on Shabbat, so therefore, right, maybe also above as well, they're not judging on Shabbat. And this is maybe the reason, it's possible, that the rabbis waived this mitzvah of doing the shofar on Shabbat. But as we said, the main reason is because of the issue of carrying. The person may come to carry on Shabbat. This is just something icing on the cake, maybe something like that. But anyway, the point is, Rabbi, that on Shabbat we're not going to do the shofar. So we're going to do the shofar on the second day. And even though, right, we Sfardim especially, we don't say Shechianu on both days. We only say Shechianu on the first day when it comes to the shofar. So because of that, what's going to be is since we're not saying blowing the shofar on the first day on Shabbat, we're going to do Shechianu on the second day because we didn't do yet the mitzvah. So we only, on the second day, we don't do Shechianu only when we did it on the first day. But if we didn't want to do it on the first day, so they have to do it on the second day. So therefore on the second day we're going to do Shechianu. Everybody's going to do Ashkenazim, Sfaradim, everybody's going to do Shechianu on the second day. And on the Shabbat, no shofar, right? We cannot blow the shofar, we cannot move the shofar, it's muktzah, it's not really allowed to even play around with it at all, whatsoever, right? To practice with it, also you cannot practice. Nothing you can do with the shofar on Shabbat. So therefore, we have no business with the shofar on Shabbat. That's the way it comes out this year. And that's very fantastic. The rabbis knew what they were doing, believe me, they knew much better what they were doing. They understand very well how the world was made up, and they knew very much better than us. So we have no problems with that. We have no worries with that. So therefore, this is the way it's going to be this year. We're not going to do the shofar. So then what happens is that after the shofar is done for the sitting part, which is 30 voices, as we said, what's going to happen is that later on, as we do Musaf, we're going to do more blowings of the shofar. This is only rabbinical. This is not from the Torah. The rabbis instituted these blowings. As the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah Tet Zayin Amud Bet, it's because to confuse the Satan. What does that mean? That since we're doing so many blowings, Satan is already getting worried. He's saying, "Wow, they're doing too much. What's going on over here?" If it was just a regular, a thing, a regular mitzvah, they just do 30 voices. Now they're doing 60. Why? Because in the silent part of the Amidah, they do 30 more voices. They do, right? So, what does that mean? That we have 3 extra brachot in the Musaf, right? Zichronot, Shofarot, and Malchiot. So because of that, they do the shofar on each bracha. So it comes out to be that they do 30 voices again during the silent Musaf prayers, and then again the same thing happens again when they do the Musaf, the repetition out loud. They'll also do another 30. So it comes out to be 30 and 30 and 30, which is 90 altogether. So then after the Musaf is over, we do 10 more at the end of the Musaf. So it comes out to be altogether 100 voices that we hear of the shofar. This is from the rabbis. Because as we said, from the Torah, it's enough to do 30 as we do in the beginning. But anyway, if a person who can be there and hear all of that, it's very, very proper and very good. Right? But as we said, right, if a person wasn't able to be there for some reason, let's say he had to go out to the bathroom or whatever, and he missed a little bit of those blowings afterwards, as long as he heard the first 30, he fulfills his obligation. He doesn't have to go now and again do the blowing again, somewhere, look for some other synagogue to fulfill 100 voices. 100 voices is not 100% necessary for each person as an individual. So therefore, right, he should try to hear it, but if he couldn't hear it, he doesn't have to go looking around to fulfill 100 voices. As long as he got the 30 in the beginning, as we said over time. So this is the way it works. So what's going to be is that a person is going to hear 100 voices, and then in the end, right, again, we do one more long one, right, teruah, really, really long. So the chazan goes he holds his breath, and he does it as long as possible. So really the truth is, right, in the end, we do one more, so it's 101, whatever. But the point is that we're doing 100, blowings of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. As we said, the first day is Shabbat, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do any blowings, but the second day, this is the way it's going to be. So, Rabbi, if a person wants to, as we said, right, he wants to get a good judgment on Rosh Hashanah, he has to make sure at least that he's there for the initial 30 blowings, which is the main element of the mitzvah. Also, as we mentioned in the beginning, that women are exempt from the mitzvah of shofar. What's the reason why? Because it's a positive mitzvah, right, which is time-bound. Mitzvah taseh shazman grama. So since it's considered to be in that category, women are generally exempt from those mitzvot. So here also they're exempt, technically speaking, from the Torah they're exempt. But it says in Magen Avraham something interesting. It comes in Magen Avraham and says that the women took it on as an obligation, like willingly. They took it on as an obligation. So the truth is that there are some poskim who don't like this language of the Magen Avraham. What does that mean? You took it on as an obligation. It's a custom, whatever. So the truth is that Ashkenazim, the ladies of the Ashkenazim, they're more stringent about that because of this Magen Avraham. They're more serious about that. So they try to all come, the ladies. And they have also another blowing before Mincha prayer, just in case the ladies couldn't come in the morning. They come later on. So they try to fulfill their obligation, right, according to their understanding, which is it's an obligation from a custom. It's a custom obligation because it's not from the Torah, as we said. So anyway, the point is the Ashkenazi women are more stringent. When it comes to the Sfaradim, what should they do, the ladies? They should try to come because, it's a custom anyway to hear the shofar. So if they can hear the first 30 blowings, as we said, right, which is the main element, that would be fantastic. If they cannot, maybe they can come back later, before Mincha prayers, and the Chazan or the Rabbi will do it for them again, for the ladies especially, right? But when he does for the ladies, if there's no men who are fully the obligation, he's not going to bless for them because since they're not obligated to hear the shofar, we don't bless for them because it says in the blessing, Asher Kedeshenu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, right? Who sanctifies with his mitzvot and commanded us. Who commanded you? You're a lady, so therefore we cannot do the brachot for them. The Ashkenazim they do because they go according to Rabbeinu Tam. According to Rabbeinu Tam, the ladies also bless these blessings even though they're not commanded. And we says the Rabbeinu Tam, the reason is because when we say in the bracha, when we say in the blessing that they were commanded, we're talking about the people in general, not the ladies, not you as an individual. So therefore it's okay. But according to Rambam, the Sephardim go like the Rambam, the rule is that we don't make the blessing for the ladies unless there's also a man who didn't hear the shofar in the morning and he came now, right? So he played hooky all day, whatever, God forbid, and he came now to hear with the ladies. So if there's at least one man who didn't hear, we can say the bracha because then we have to say it for him. Right, and the rule is, the custom is also we say shechianu for him as well, because since he didn't hear anything, the bracha or the blowing, he wasn't there. So we say shechianu, we say the bracha, lishma kol shofar, we do everything for him in the normal way. But if there's only ladies there and all the men already heard the shofar, so then we don't make the bracha for the ladies. But the Ashkenazim they do, as we said, right? Two different customs. Everyone goes according to his custom. Very good. But the point is, right, as we said that. When I say the bottom line is that when it comes to the ladies, the Sephardi ladies should try to come because it is a custom somewhat, especially if they have done it before several times, 3 times in a row, whatever. So then it's like already like taken on as an obligation somewhat, it's a custom. But the point is that if they cannot come, if they're prevented from coming for some reason, let's say they didn't feel good or they're afraid of viruses, whatever, right, all kinds of things like that. Now we have this, everybody's coming with viruses and all kinds of things. And also, let's say taking care of the children or whatever it is, they can't come for some reason. So a woman who wasn't able to come, they don't really have a sin. There's no sin over there because, as we said, right, according to Torah, they're exempt. They should try to come as a custom. If they couldn't come for some reason, right, then they had to forego this mitzvah. No big deal. And the reason is, Rabbi, that when a person forgoes a custom on a one-time basis, he doesn't really have to worry about that so much. It's not like he forgoes it all his life. It's not like that. They didn't know what to do. He would have to permit the neder, which is something when you do 3 times in a row, considered to be like a neder, like an obligation, like a vow. So here, since you're just canceling on a one-time basis, it says in the poskim, several poskim they write, that in a case like that, you don't have to permit the neder, permit the vow, because it's only a one-time basis. So therefore, Rabbi, the rule is for the ladies that if they cannot come, no problem, no big deal, but they should try to come because, as we said, right, how important the mitzvah is, and also it is a custom for the ladies to come as well. So, Bezat Hashem, everything should be good. So if we do the Mitzvah of Shofar properly, this will definitely help us to have a better judgment, and the accusations of Satan will be nullified and cancelled, and the prosecutor will be disqualified altogether, and the court case will be adjourned forever, and we'll have the Biyat HaMashiach b'mehera b'yameinu. Amen v'amen. Chazak u'baruch. Thanks for listening to us, and have health, wealth, and happiness for you and your families. Amen v'amen. Lots of success and a great new year. Biyat HaMashiach b'mehera b'yameinu. Amen.